Hi friends, my name is Bhavya Mangla. I'm IATF qualified auditor doing audit for the automotive sector for the last 18 years. I'm again back with a very interesting topic. What is the key difference between structure analysis, that is step 2 in FMEA first edition, and FMEA fourth edition where we call it as process steps. Now before going further, it's very important to understand what exactly is structure analysis and how it is different from function analysis. So in general terms, we talk about fit and function, fitment and function. So the structural analysis is primarily about fitment, and functional, that function is about function analysis, that is step number 3. If I give a simple example, let's take the example of this particular pen. So when we talk about structural analysis, we are talking about how is the fitment of these two things, or how is the fitment of lower part with the upper part. So that is with respect to the fitment, which is about structural analysis. And when we talk about function analysis, at that time we talk about how this pen is working, how is the smoothness of the pen, how it is with respect to handling when you are using the pen, how smooth it is. So it's all about function. But in this particular video specifically, I'm going to talk about what is FMEA, what are the 7 steps of FMEA as per the new edition, specifically the key difference between structural analysis as well as in comparison to the previous version of 4th edition. And in the last, I'll be talking about the key challenges that industry is facing with respect to it. So let's first talk about the definition of FMEA. So by definition, FMEA is a team-oriented, systematic, qualitative and analytical method to identify, analyze and mitigate the technical risk related to the product and manufacturing process design. It's important to understand that FMEA is before the event and not after the event. And in this latest version of FMEA first edition, there are 7 key steps which are there. The first one is about preparation. The second one is about structure analysis. The third one is about function analysis. The fourth one is about function analysis, failure analysis. The fifth one is about risk analysis. The sixth one is about optimization. And the seventh is about the results and the documentation part. Now let's talk about the structure analysis and how it is different from FMEA 4th edition. So when we talk about structure analysis, the key objective is to analyze and to facilitate the complete understanding of the product and the process. And how to do that? Now it can be done by identifying and by breaking down the entire product and process into different steps and to see that how the different things are interfacing with each other. One very important thing to understand here is that the output of structure analysis is an input for function analysis. So if the structure analysis is good, the functional analysis will be good. Another important thing is that structure analysis cannot be completed unless and until there is a good collaboration between the customer and the organization. So whatever inputs that are coming from the customer, if they are not taken completely, it will be very difficult to identify all the possible structure related issues. And it's very important to understand that when we are talking about step 2, that is structure analysis, the boundaries are already set up in the step 1. So if the boundaries are correct, then structure analysis will also be good. Typical, if I talk about a structure analysis, it is of 3 different parts, 3 expanded columns I will say. The first one is called process or process item. It can also be called next higher level. The second one is called process step. It is also called the focus element. And the third one is called process work element, which can also be called next lower level or the characteristic type. So once we understand this thing, it becomes very easy to clearly demonstrate about the relationship between these 3 steps, and then based on that the function analysis can be done effectively. Now to talk specifically with respect to design FMEA. So as per design FMEA, the terminology that is being used for these 3 different columns is system, subsystem and components. And what we do is that we do the technical risk analysis, and for that we use the block or the boundary diagram. Now to take a simple example, if you see in the picture, you will find that in the FMEA 4th edition, there used to be only one terminology, that used to be item. And it was up to us or the CFT to decide what the item means. But to make it more clear, in the new FMEA edition, they are put into 3 different parts, that is next higher level, focus element and next low level. To take a simple example to make it more clear, when we talk about the focus element, we were talking about drive. If you see on the left hand side, with respect to a system or next higher level, we are talking about a bicycle. And if you see on the right hand side, which is third one, the next lower level or the component level, we are talking about pedal. So once we are clear that there is a pedal, there is a drive, and then they are combining together to make a bicycle, things become a little bit more clear to understand with respect to identifying what can be the possible structure related issues and what can be the functional related issues that can happen. Something similar is with process FMEA. In process FMEA, what we are doing is that we are dividing into 3 different parts, and the terminology is a little bit different. We call it process items, process steps, and process work element. And in this we use process flow chart and the structure tree. So take a simple example with respect to that. As per FMEA 4th edition, that is the old version, there was only one single word, that was process step. And here in FMEA 1st edition, they have used 3 different words to explain this particular thing. They are talking about process items, process steps, and process work element. And in process work element, they are talking about 6M: man, machine, material, method, measurement, and mother earth or environment. So here the intent is that how this process work element can impact the process steps. Once we are clear about it, it makes the thing very easy. And to take an example about it, if you see the step number 2, that is process step, and here we are talking about operation 30, sintered bearing press in process. Now, how it can be impacted? It can be impacted by step number 3, that is operator and the press machine. And if you see on the left hand side, that is process item, that is electrical motor line assembly. So once we make the things clear, then it becomes very easy to understand that. Now I talked about a word block diagram, and the objective of block diagram is to disassemble a particular part to see that how the part is being assembled, and once we are clear about it, it makes very easy to identify the possible failures with respect to that. And the block diagram is used for design FMEA. So if you see the example here, we are talking about bulb assembly, which has got 3 different parts, that is switch on and off, housing, and batteries. And battery also has got its own sub-assembly, spring, 2 different springs are there. So when we bifurcate everything clearly as a block diagram, it becomes very easy to identify that what can be the possible interface issue and what can be the possible challenge with respect to the assembly. Then talk a little bit about the process flow chart. Now process flow chart is quite simple thing and we all know about it. It's talking about the flow of material and the processes from the beginning, from incoming inspection till the dispatch in any organization. It can be a very complicated process flow chart or it can be a simple process flow chart depending upon the kind of processes that we are having. And in the last, if I talk about structure tree, the word which is being used with respect to the process FMEA. So as I told earlier, it has got 3 steps: process items, process steps, and process work element. And if you see the example here, when we talk about process and product steps, we are talking primarily about, say, electrical motor assembly line. When we are talking about process step or station, so here we are going in detail about different operations, operation 10, 20, 30, 40 and all that, and how each process can be getting impacted by the process elements. It can be man, machine, material, method, environment and other things. One very important thing is that in case we are missing something during the structure analysis, surely it will get missed in the function analysis also. So we should be very careful to identify all the possible thing in the structure analysis. So if I do a summary with respect to structure analysis, so when we talk about DFMEA, the intent is to use a block diagram, and herein we are talking about 3 key things: next higher level, focus element, and next lower level. And when we are talking about process FMEA, we are talking about structure tree or the process flow diagram as an input, and by using that we can identify what is a process step, what is a process items with respect to that, and in the last is the process work element, which is about the 6M. Now to talk about some of the key challenges that industry is facing with respect to structure analysis. The first and the foremost is how often the cross-functional team which is working on making the FMEA, they are clear about what is structure analysis and what is function analysis. Second, and the even more important thing is that while doing the FMEA, while making the FMEA, how often the cross-functional team is preparing a block diagram or a structure tree before going ahead with the FMEA. And if we are not making block diagram and the process flow chart or structure tree, how good or how effective is the FMEA that we are making? We need to think about that. My next video will again be in line with the same FMEA series. That will be about step 3, that is function analysis, and how it is related or what kind of difference it is having with respect to the older version, that is FMEA 4th edition version. Regularly I am getting a lot of feedbacks from your side and they are helping me to understand your expectations, so please do continue that. And in case you want to understand about this particular video in a little bit more detail, if you see there is a blog below, if you click that, you will find in detail about this particular video. And in case you are liking these kind of videos and blogs, you can always share with your friends, and you can subscribe to my YouTube channel and my website bhavyamangla.com. Thank you.